This is Midrash Tanchuma, Parshat Shemot, and this is entitled The Egyptian Bondage, a lesson in anti-Semitism that nobody wants to hear. And what do I mean by that? Some people will look at the conclusions of this Midrash and say, yeah, I got to admit that seems to be the way Jewish history goes. And some people will say, that is an awful thing to say. You're blaming the victim. Anyways, before we get into the subject of anti-Semitism, it's only fair to say two things. Number one, we say at the Seder table that the anti-Semitism in Egypt was nothing like the original one, which was Lavan, who wanted to destroy everyone. The Egyptians only wanted to destroy the boys. And we also say that anti-Semitism is a famous Rashi quoting the Sifrei, that anti-Semitism is totally irrational, right? Halacha hi biyadua she'esav sonei liYaakov. Okay, so we'll just keep that in mind. And now the Midrash, in starting out its investigation of this matter, already drops a hint. It sounds very much like spare the rod, spoil the child. It's from Ecclesiastes, Choshev Shovto, Sone Beno. So, if you spare the rod, it means you hate your child. So already the Midrash is hinting that when the Jewish people come into hard times, sometimes it's really coming from God's love of us, trying to get us back in line. Okay? So here, we're ready. Midrash is going to drop its bombshell. Kshamet Yosef Hefiru Brit Mila Amru Niyeh Kimitzrim. Soon as Joseph died, and all the brothers died, the Jews said, we really want to fit in Egyptian society. We want to assimilate. The one thing that's holding us back is the fact that we are circumcised. Let's stop circumcision. Let's abrogate circumcision. Okay? So now the question is, what are the consequences for that? Okay, so the Jews start to be enslaved. The interesting thing is there's no hint in the Chumash that there's any sort of cause and effect, that there's anti-Semitism arousing from this assimilation. In fact, it's very, very rational what the Chumash describes as the reason that the Egyptian society want to enslave the Jews. Basically, it says, "V'nosaf gamhu al sonenu," that we're afraid that the Jews have become very numerous and they could be a third wheel. They could join an enemy who's trying to attack us. All rational for self-preservation. The problem is that the Midrash says this is the official line that appears in the times of Egypt, but it is not real. It is covering up anti-Semitism. It's covering up all the hatred that is fermenting there, but they had to put out an official line, so that's what they said. And basically, according to the Midrash, God is saying that if you abrogate circumcision, I am going to abrogate sort of a social relationship between the Egyptians and the Jews. After all, if you remember in Egyptian history, it should be well known that one Jew saved the entire country, in fact, the entire world, and that is Yosef, right? He saved everyone from starvation. So there should be some admiration for him and for the Jewish people, but God intervened and abrogated that relationship and turned it around into the hatred of the Jew because we abrogated circumcision. Now, there's something very eerie in the Midrash, because the Midrash seems to ask, could this really happen? What about all the accomplishments that we've done for Egypt? As I just said, Yosef saved the whole country, the whole world. So the answer is, and of course this was asked in Berlin, and the answer is that God is saying, yes, indeed, even Pharaoh himself thought that this was a crazy idea. And he said to the Egyptian mobs who want to enslave the Jews, are you kidding? You want to enslave the Jews? Don't you know that Joseph saved us? And they said, listen, we're doing this. And they removed him from power for 3 months until he finally joined the bandwagon and said, okay, I get it. I'm with you. I will take these policies. So again, as I said, very eerie about asking the question about, isn't there some kind of a lasting effect of everything that we've done for Egyptian society? The answer is no, there is not. Okay, so now we have to draw conclusions, and this is, of course, a very timely topic as anti-Semitism is rearing its ugly head. And in America, there's a lot of talk about those with social media reach, like athletes and entertainment and politicians who are fomenting anti-Semitism, and there's a great need to call it out and say it what it is and have the guts to stand up, and that will help stem the tide. But alas, if you look at the conclusions of the Midrash, it's quite obvious that it is God who is fomenting the anti-Semitism. As we said before, spare the rods, spoil the child. God is trying to reconnect us, even in a painful way, back to our heritage and back to Judaism. And sometimes it's very uncomfortable, and it is a pattern that is repeated many, many times in Jewish history. That's why I said at the outset that some people say, okay, this conclusion is quite obvious, but many people will say, how dare you say that? You're blaming those certain group of Jews who are assimilating. It's their fault. Anti-Semitism, outrageous. So the Midrash is quite clear, and I wish you a great Shabbat.